Anybody there?
Edition of So You Want to Be in IT. This is a podcast aimed at those just starting out their journey in the vast world of IT. So we're talking navigating the world of IT as a beginner, trying to break into the industry, from how to, again, break in, climb the ladder, and everything in between, everything that goes with that. So I'm your host, Pat.
Hey, this is Dean here. How you guys doing?
Dean over there doing his thing. And yeah, episode 8, Dean, we aptly titled this one The New Guy. So that was a good call by you.
Yeah, we did.
It fits well with what's going on in life at the moment. So
I'm sure there's lots of new guys right now. So
yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. New guys everywhere. So we figured we talk about it. And one of the other new guys is me. I started a new job last Monday was my first day. So it is the beginning of my second week at my new gig. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll be here all week.
Congratulations.
Yes. So we figured, well, I started a new gig and we might as well talk about, that's a nice segue into being the new guy on campus or being the new guy in the room. So that was a great topic and we're going to give it a good old college try and our best shot and just some things that we've come across in our career, being the new guy in the room and the do's and don'ts and what worked for us. So just here to help you guys try to climb that ladder and get over those couple of humps of the first couple of weeks to get acclimated to your new joint. So yeah, so I guess I will start out. It is a new gig for me. I've left Rent-A-Kill, North America. So I am now with a company called Venerable. They're a finance company out of Westchester, Pennsylvania, is their headquarters. It's about
Okay.
It's about an hour southwest of me where I'm at now. So I don't actually have to go in anywhere. I can work right from here, even after COVID. It is a fully remote gig. So that was a very nice perk, if you will, that attracted me to the place. So that was cool. So looking forward to being remote, and I'll probably have to go in, maybe once, twice a month, whatever, but that's no big deal. I've traveled down there for other jobs in that area and whatnot. I was doing 5 days a week. So the once or twice, maybe even a handful of times down in that office, just to say hello and get my eyes on things and shake hands. I'll take that all day.
Absolutely. So what is it you've transitioned into now? Like what's the official new title and what will you be doing right now? Do you know?
Yeah, so technically the new title is Senior Cloud Engineer, specifically in the network space. So where my gig now, I don't know if they have a network team per se. I guess it all falls under their cloud team, since they are very cloud centric. So
okay.
So I'm just a network guy in the cloud team, I guess, if that makes any sense to everybody. So same sort of responsibilities as like a senior network engineer kind of thing. But what I like about this gig is I'm not doing a lot of the break fix every day, people's hair's on fire kind of thing. I'm more strategic. So it's, what's coming down the road and, a year, 3 years, that sort of thing. Newer technology, what's a fit, what's not, what to stay away with, or I should say what to stay away from, that sort of thing. So it's a shift in mentality roles for me. So I'm excited to see what what this brings and get a little bigger picture action, and not so much in the trenches anymore, which is nice.
Okay, excellent. And do you believe that the reason for this role and that you're not so much sort of reactive or break fix as you sort of take it or put it, is because you are in the cloud and that the nature of the cloud is more resilient as opposed to like traditional networking? Is it that, or is it more to it than that?
I think that's a part of it. There still is, obviously you still have local connectivity at each office, right? So you need network gear there. You need switches, you need, firewalls, you need SD-WAN, whatever. The cloud's the other part of that, as far as, as long as things are up in the cloud, everybody's, fat and happy sort of thing. But I'm still doing, somebody needs access to this, or somebody's not part of this group that they can't access, file X or whatever. So still a large part, still a lot of that, or still getting used to that. The other part of it is we actually have an MSP that handles all the day-to-day break fix and does a lot of our monitoring. So that takes a lot of the load off of guys like me to do the big picture 50,000 foot view type of thing. So I think it's a lot of that as well.
That's excellent.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the new start and the new the new challenges that are ahead. So I hit the ground running. I got a great team there, and they're all over the country as well. So we're not. So actually, I think there's only one other guy that's in Pennsylvania where I'm at. The rest of them are spread all over. One's moving to Florida. My boss is in Florida, so we're all over. So there's no more, no such thing as sitting in a cubicle and typing away at the keyboard for 8 hours. So that's kind of cool. So we're all remote, obviously, at the moment because of the COVID thing. So, but it's going to be basically a almost permanent remote role for the time, going forward after COVID. So, so far it's been really good. So like I said, got a good team there, and everybody's been real welcoming, and just trying to put my stamp on things. And it's a lot of information when you first take over a new role, or get a new role.
Yeah, so tell us about that. Tell us about being the new guy. Like, how did that feel when you like your first day, for instance? I know it's obviously living through a pandemic. Your first day is going to be a little different from, I don't know, a first day a few years ago. So like the norm, you could say, is a little different now. What would you say? Obviously, you don't get those nerves of meeting different people in the organization, but I'm sure there's something what's different, or maybe made you feel a little unease, or was there any of that?
I don't think there was any of that. I think there was anxious excitement, right? So when you start a new gig, it's always good to, you always want to rip that Band-Aid off and get in there and shake hands and, kiss babies and all that kind of stuff. So, I think it was a lot of nervous energy, excitement, anxiousness, that kind of thing. I mean, this is, I think my third now senior network engineer role. So, it was just kind of taking a deep breath, taking a step back and saying, look, you've been here before. The underlying technologies are still the network, but it's just a different coat of paint of how they do things, right? So,
right.
You have to have a little confidence in yourself and saying, hey, they hired me for a reason. They like my skills and, X, Y, Z. So, I didn't feel a whole lot of, oh my God, like I'm the new guy in the room, or I have to prove myself to anybody, that sort of thing. It's just learning the environment and taking it one step at a time. And, like I said, if you got a good team around you, they're willing to help and, kind of ease that pain or lessen that bridge, if you will. I think that makes the transition a little smoother, and, the nerves calm down a little bit.
Yeah, nice. So have you been assigned a mentor or someone assigned to work like closely with? So until you get more familiar with their like procedures and processes?
They did. He was basically the guy that was doing the network type deals in the interim while they were searching for me. So he has other responsibilities, but he basically was the guy that took the network by default while they were looking for to fill the position. So he's been really good, and I just appreciate his knowledge and trying to get me up to speed and things of that nature. So so far it's been good, and I've been spending my time doing a lot of documentation and notes and things of that nature. So it's been a good week, and like I said, today's the start of the second week, so I think I'll stick around.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's good. It's good that you're taking notes. That's definitely a good tidbit of information, especially when you're training with someone or someone showing you information or important procedures or things on how to do stuff. I do think it's important to take good notes, because there's nothing more than annoying than asking someone the same thing over and over again when they've kind of showed it to you.
No, I agree, and just as a tip out there, because it seems like these companies are, they're either in the Microsoft space or the Google space. So previously, Rent-A-Kill was in the Google space, so they were a Google shop. So mail, docs, meet, hangout, whatever you want to call it, chat. Now this place is a Microsoft shop. So Outlook and
365
Teams and all that stuff. So I'm like, that's a nuance I'm learning that I wasn't expecting to. Not that it's a hurdle, but it's a change of it's a change of culture in that aspect that I worked for 2.5 years at Rentokil in the Google world, and now I'm thrust back into the Microsoft world. And after a few years, and those few years, there was a lot of changes in the teams and outlook and where things are and things of that nature. So it's like I'm learning all over again.
Yeah, because you're probably coming back from like Skype Business, because I remember having that a couple of years back, and it was simple. So it was really easy to use, but it didn't have robust features, or not. It wasn't comprehensive like Teams. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And yeah, coming from Google's just kind of always been the same.
Yeah, they're very standard in that aspect. So it's like I said, I wasn't expecting to. Not that it's a hurdle or anything, but I wasn't. It's definitely. It's added to the plate of trying to learn the environment and the culture at the new place. Now I have to retrain myself to learn
I get
the
it.
Microsoft
it's like when
side.
you want to quickly like set a meeting up, you have to think like 5 steps more, because how do I do it this way?
Right, exactly. And the other thing too, like I guess Teams, I don't know, it just to me, and I say this 2 weeks in or a week in one day, and it just seems clunky in some aspects. Like in the Google side, it was chat, you knew what it was. Like within Teams, there's like so much going on in Teams, like you don't know where to look, and you don't know what features you're using versus what features you could be using, that sort of thing. So I'm still kind of finding my way through that piece as well. So like for example, like at other places I've used like Slack, or you and I, Dean, we use Discord for the chat for this podcast and things of that nature. So it's very structured in that manner of channels and things of that nature. Teams has a little bit of that, but the layout is different, so it's hard for me to get around and to find things that
it's squished together.
Yeah, it's kind of clunky in that manner. So
yeah, I agree.
So I just, for listeners out there, just note that you have to, you're not only starting a new job you're supposed to, learn the environment, but the ecosystem, if you will, the IT ecosystem could also be different as well. And the two big players out there, obviously now, are, like I said, Microsoft has been around for forever, and Google, they've seemed to sort of catch up in the last couple of years. Again, like Dean said, they don't change a whole lot. It's simple, it's clean, and whatnot, but it seems to be making a dent into Microsoft's, I don't know, pie, if that makes any sense. So I think more companies are starting to lean towards the Google model. So just know that there's different IT ecosystems out there, and that's just something else you got to account for.
Yeah, definitely. It's not something, again, that's taught in a book, or when your boss asks you to fire up a meeting to a customer. It's like, what I mean? How do you do that? Right. Something when I first started, I struggled with stuff like that, because I've not come across a comprehensive Teams or Google course. Yeah, you can muddle through it and figure it out and stuff like that. It's not difficult to do, but when you've got 101 things going on your plate and you're flustered, it can, like, little things like that definitely overwhelm me. So
yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's just trying to learn the environment and kind of go from there. But yeah, so that kind of leads me to, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit today about, being the new guy, new girl, that sort of thing. So, what are some tips that we've experienced over our careers to try to make that transition easier and not to stick out like a sore thumb, especially if it's your first gig, right? For your first actual IT gig. I think the biggest one for me is, and it's not so much now at the position that I'm at, right? So Dean, you and I are, a little long in the tooth in our careers, and we've been around the block a few times, but I think for people just breaking in, I think the best thing you can do in the first, I don't know, month, maybe month and a half, is just sit back and just listen to what is going on around you and soak in as much of that knowledge and document whatever documentation scheme you want to use that makes sense in your brain. Do it that way for the first month, and just soak up that knowledge and just listen. I find people come in and they start to hit the ground running and throwing out all these suggestions and all this stuff from day 2 is like, oh man, at the time what you're trying to fix, at the time that was engineered that way, there was a reason for it, right? So not necessarily it has to be done to what to what the new guy's brain has, the idea in his brain. But I think it's that ideology of just sitting back and listening and soaking it in. And then after a month, you've got all this information out on paper and documentation, then look over it, spew it over, and then form an opinion after that. Because if you start talking a little too quick, then it could do a couple things. It could rub people the wrong way that you're trying to reinvent the wheel in a day. And then the other part of it is there could be a backstory there that it was done that way because at the time the business needed X and we had to provide X. So there's a couple of things there. And I think just kind of taking a step back, listening for the good part of a month or whatever it is, whatever that time frame is, and then stepping into that comfort zone and say, okay, I've learned enough about this company that I can now confidently say we need X because Y.
Gotcha. Yeah, I agree. That's really good. That's solid, actually.
I have them every now and then. I'm not right too often, but I'm every now and then a blind squirrel finds a nut. So that's all good.
Nice, but it can go so many different ways. Depending on how your mind works, I suppose. But that's solid advice. Honestly, that really is good advice. Definitely, because I've seen people come in and they want to change something on day one, and they don't really understand the environment or how things work, or you've not supported it or been on call, or you've not really experienced, you just not had the full experience or the understanding of why you should change your environment. So I definitely agree with you in that aspect. I think it's definitely worthwhile just to sit back and just take in what they've done, and then if you see areas of improvement, take it on later. I know when I first started Philips Healthcare, they wouldn't let me touch anything for 6 months. I was in training courses, back to back, shadowing people, because we're regulated by the FDA.
Sure.
They're really hot on the newbies or new guys and girls, like touching sort of patient monitoring systems and equipment and stuff like that until you're certified and you've had the appropriate training. So I definitely get what it's like to just sort of kind of sit on your hands. Just, you are thinking about things, but you can't actively participate. And in some aspects, that does get a little frustrating when, especially for me, it was like a very long time where I really got to like started undertaking some projects on my own. But I definitely understand that there is an element to, you can't just come in and just change something that's been in place for a while. Like, it's there for a reason, kind of deal. So
right. Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think especially in the industry that you're in, right? So, Dean, you're in the healthcare industry now. I'm in the finance industry. They're both regulated by their own governing bodies, right? So, to change that, there may be, to change whatever you want to change, that may need to go up 10 rungs of the ladder and get approved and then run to regulation and, things of that nature. So, case in point, before I started, I asked the boss, I said, do you guys, like, what's your communication tool? Like, do you use Slack or do you use, anything like that? And he said, no, we don't really, we don't use that. We're pretty much a team shop all the way through. And I said, okay. And then he's like, we don't do anything cool like Slack. And I was like, well, is that by design or is that just because we just had lack of adoption? And he just basically said that they just always use Teams and that's where people are comfortable. And so to that point, like, again, I'm back in the Microsoft world. I have to use Visio for my diagrams. I haven't used Visio in like 10 years. Right,
that must be painful.
I've always been in Lucidchart. Like, I love Lucidchart. That's my go-to for any kind of diagrams or anything like that. And I asked if I could use Lucidchart, and he said no, it's not an approved app because I don't know if it's because of regulation or whatever. So again, that's more of a learning curve of okay, sit back. In other words, sit back, shut up, learn what other people are using. And then, get your energy about you, get your ammo loaded up. And then when it's time to cut loose and, you have enough wits about you, present your case. So it's very different from each industry to industry of what they're using, what they're allowed to use based off of governance or anything of that nature. So that's another good point that you bring up, that, you're almost in a silo in that aspect of you're forced to use product X because that's what the company approves.
what they approve, what they said, what governing body presides over them, whether that be financial or healthcare, like you said. Yeah, it's just it's very much like that. You're very tied to the tools you have, and being in this game for a while, Microsoft has always been a front runner in that aspect.
Right.
It's like they always seem to be around. You can't go. I know lots of people who don't like Visio. I personally don't mind it. But I know there's better out there, but you know what I mean? Visio is always, it's not the best, but it's always going to be around.
For sure.
It's like McDonald's. It's not the best hamburger,
right?
But
it's never going to die.
Never going to die. You can get it in most countries in the world. Like, you know what I mean? It's pretty friggin' universal.
Right. Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. I mean, I was in Visio today, and it's not, you're right. It's not terrible. It's just something different. Like I haven't used it in forever. It's just very Microsoft wordy. It's just Microsoft way of going about things. It is. Yeah. Yes, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah. So, like Dean said, you're very kind of tied to the tools that you're given, and you have to learn to make the best of it.
Yeah, or adapt. You know what I mean? If you got a new company car and you went from an Audi to a BMW, you know what I mean? It's just some people might prefer the BMW, some people might prefer the Audi.
Correct.
Personally, I'll be happy with either one, but it's a car with free fuel, so I ain't gonna complain.
No. There is no bones about it this way. The other thing I thought about too, Dean, and I'd like to get your thought on it, is as far as like, you know, your first day in there. Okay, your first couple of days, whatever, you start meeting people, you start kind of get those communications going. I think you have to show that you're a good fit, right? Both from a technical perspective, what they hired you to do, obviously, and from a culture perspective of you're a fit that way. Because today's age, they almost carry the same weight as far as, you know, an actual job.
Yeah, I would even say that the culture one carries more weight due to that.
Yeah,
if you don't fit in terms of the team, in terms of your views, like the way you work,
right,
your personalities, if that's a huge clash, then you can't. It's very difficult to relearn that or reteach that. Like some people just inherently don't get on with others, and they just see the world in a different kind of manner or way, and it's just never going to work, and that's fine. The technical aspect, I'm not personally, the older I've got, before it used to be all about the tech, how good you are and stuff like that. Now I'm less concerned about that because there's always going to be someone really good at tech. And with people like those, you can always get those people to create procedures, teach, exchange information. Like you can always learn technical skills. You can't really learn. You can learn it, but it's more of a push to teach someone how to be a team player or have their teammates back or go above and beyond. Those skills are just, I don't know. You kind of have those skills or you don't. If you're selfish in nature and you don't care about your team and you're not up for your team winning, then how's a manager really going to coach you in that? I'm not saying it's impossible, but
right. The hill's a lot larger. Yeah,
the hole's huge. Whereas, like, if they're struggling on, I don't know, routing in networking, for instance, you could just put them on a course for that, or get them a mentor, and that's not very difficult. You know what I mean? Like, the bridge is not that. You can always teach someone new skill sets. Like, the personality aspects of someone is just it's a little bit more far fetched. That's therapy and all that sort of stuff, and that's professional help, which I'm not qualified to talk about.
Right. That's a whole other topic. That's next week.
Precisely, yeah. You're on your own on that one, mate.
Right. Do your own research on that one, guys. Yeah. No, I agree. I think you're right. I think the shift from technical wizard to cultural fit, it's always that argument of IQ versus EQ, right? So what's your soft skills look like versus your technical skills? And I think the balance has actually shifted in the last I'd probably say the last 10 years, maybe somewhere in there. That they're the EQ stuff holds more weight or holds it holds more weight than it did than the technical side, that sort of thing. But in that, so showing you're a good fit, and that part of that showing the good fit piece of it is creating positive relationships, right? With
sure,
with
that's
your
so
teammates.
important.
It's super important.
Absolutely, super, and I think it's important to just get that kind of not stigma, but like energy, like just get that off the bat straight away. Just be very positive. When I tend to be the new guy, just accept everything you get.
Yep.
Like if you get work and it might not be a part of your job, or someone wants you to look at it or do it, just do it. Like who cares? Just like it's all learning right now.
Yep.
Just take everything you got and just learn as much as you can.
Yep.
And then tailor it to your specifications, and don't come in and start saying I'm not doing this or I'm not doing that, because that doesn't create a positive relationship with anyone in an organization.
No, that's gonna get you on the blacklist pretty quick.
Yeah, and get people's backs up, and so that's not a good fit. I think going in, being open, listening, and just taking on jobs, being inquisitive, asking questions, being proactive, reading procedures, looking at designs, looking at technology, how they triage and problem solve things. A good one I found was if the organization has a ticketing system, just read through past tickets that engineers have solved. Like you learn a wealth of information from just like going to the resolution notes. It's like the cliff notes.
Yeah.
No one ever tells you this, but go to the cliff notes on a problem. Oh my God. Go right to the end. You're just like, oh my God, that's how they fixed it. Or that's how you learn a lot that way. So, most organizations have like platforms and stuff like that. I remember using Remedy STK for a few years, and I'm sure there's lots of different ones now. However, reading those notes are really, really powerful information.
I agree. So I think positive relationships, building that that rapport with your teammates, and because it's bound to happen, right? It's bound to happen that you're going to be at a pinch, you're going to need somebody on your team, and they're going to bail you out, and then. But if you're if you come in there as a know-it-all, if you come in there as, kind of hard to work with and stiff and rigid, nobody's calling you back on a Friday at 7:00 because you need a hand. Like that just doesn't, that's not the way the world
take it one step. They might even set you up.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Let me unplug this as I walk out the door on a Friday.
Precisely.
Because they know you're on call. You're like, oh man.
Or let's see how good he really is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Put your money where your mouth is. So I've had that. Yeah. And I think the other piece of it is falling into some of the common mistakes that people make when they start at a new place. So, like,
what have you seen? I've seen a bit, but I'm intrigued to see what you.
I've seen quite a bit. Well, the first piece of this is sort of what we talked about with positive relationships. But like, if you keep it to yourself, right? So if you're a little standoffish and you're not quite opening up and you're not being that personable side, it's hard for people to get to know you, and therefore that sets a precedence right off the bat as far as you're either not a team player, or and maybe people are just some people are quiet in nature, which is fine, that sort of thing. But I think the more open dialogue you have, the better the mesh is going to be from the team. And if you come in there day one and sort of keep to yourself and put your blinders on, you're not really helping. You're not helping yourself, and you're not helping your team who just hired you to try to fill a gap, fill a need.
So I completely agree, but I would also say that it's got to be really challenging, especially for yourself being new, working in a remote environment.
Yeah,
like remote. The job inherently is very solo, and you're kind of working in silos on your own. I know you've been assigned someone, but majority of your day-to-day tasks you're not going to be doing in a group setting.
Correct.
So how do you personally navigate against that? Because it's difficult to show you're super proactive when you're realistically, like, if you're doing network changes, that doesn't really require that, does it? And we just both explained that it's a really important aspect to create those positive relationships, but the actual bedrock of your work, as in, like I said, those configuration changes, or talking to the customer about technical specifications, don't necessarily require all of that, do they?
No, I think there's a balance there too. I think you have to put it in your teammates' terms, if you will, or apply it to your teammates' everyday job or something that they support. So from my perspective, and I'll use Rent-A-Kill as an example. They had their own teams, right? They had their server and hosting teams. They had a voice team. They had obviously a network team. They had desk side teams. And we talked to Ben, in episode 5. So if you missed Ben, that was a really cool episode. So go back and check
Shout
us
out to Ben.
Yeah, shout out to Ben. Thanks for coming on and hanging. But I think. So from my perspective, saying, from a hosting perspective, saying, hey, they spun up 2 DHCP servers, right, and load balance between them, and then your network changes are going to route those DHCP servers throughout your entire WAN. So I would be like, hey, hey, Brian is the team lead over at Rent-A-Kill in the hosting department. Hey, Brian, that change is coming up this week. I'm going to add routing, and now those 2 new DHCP servers that you spun up that you're going to move everyone to next month, that now you can start, that is now live. Now you can start testing and start moving forward and things like that. So you almost have to put it into their perspective of, okay, how does it affect them from a day-to-day perspective, what you're doing or what you can add to their day-to-day job, and they can make sense of, okay, yeah, that's good. So then once you start talking in their terms, if you will, I think that opens a line of communication of, okay, he's doing his job, that's helping me. Now there's a common ground there, right? Now there's a common, hey, you help me. And then next time when I need a Windows password reset, I'm going right to Brian and be like, yo, can you help me out here? So that line of communication is open. I think you almost have to apply it in, like I said, put it into their world and say, okay, this is my piece of your actual pie, and this is how it's going to play out. And that naturally opens communication when sort of worlds cross over.
That's nice. That's really nice. Yeah, that's a really good. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, so I think that's important. I think trying to fit what you do into other departments and how they get work done, or what their pie, for lack of a better term, looks like, and what some of their goals. Because once you start extending that olive branch, for lack of a better term, naturally, 9 times out of 10, naturally the olive branch is then extended back to you in that aspect, and there's your open line of communication. That's a positive relationship you just formed. So I think it's a lot of that. So I think it's a lot of that. So again, keeping to yourself, you don't get any of that. You're kind of, like you said, Dean, you're just working in a silo, and the boss comes and says, hey, have a good weekend on a Friday at 4:30, and you're like, okay, see you later, that kind of thing. So
yeah,
and this is pre-COVID, obviously, but doing the culture thing, right? So going out for wings or a beer or whatever after work, or after
my language now,
after a big project and whatnot, you just finally get over that hump. You're like, yes, let's go get a steak. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's mandatory. Yeah, after a big project,
I hear that.
You got to go out. You got to celebrate. You got to talk about the highs and lows.
Yep.
Things you can improve.
Yep.
It builds camaraderie.
Yep. That's character right there.
Yeah, relationships.
Yep.
And then when you work on that next project, it's just that much better, I think. I think for work relationships, I just truly think that's the best way to go, when everyone's kind of easy and relaxed when they've got a beer or some alcoholic beverage in front of them, or even if they don't drink, just being in a more relaxed setting.
A social setting, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, what I mean? It just brings the tone down a little when
right.
You can actually just see people for who they are, and it's not so business and transactional and
right.
so kind of blunt kind of deal. It's just easier. You know what I mean?
It's just people at that point.
Yeah,
right.
It's just people. And I think I think a lot of us get lost in the nuance of work and get trapped in, like, is he coming after me, or is he doing it? And we're just all people trying to make a living at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And
agreed.
It's just, we're all trying to, generally, I'm not saying everyone, but generally most of us are doing our best. And so I definitely get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're just people at that point, and you're going to take your wins where you can get them, go out and get a beer, get some wings, and if it's on the company dime, even better. Which most of those things are. If you're going out after a big project, most of the boss comes along and throws the card down on the table after everyone's done. So that's always helpful as well. At least that's in my experience. That's what happens. So shout out.
No, that's a general consensus. Yeah.
Yeah, but the other mistake I wanted to mention, or some of the common ones, like I said, keeping to yourself was the one. I also feel, and I've had this before, like failing to ask questions for or clarification on some things. So
yes, that's huge.
You're new, right? It's you're expected to be somewhat of a crutch in the first couple of weeks, month, whatever it is. People are expecting you to ask questions, so take advantage of that. You might as well. Right. So there's no shame in asking questions or asking for help or clarification, because obviously they know the environment better than you do, even though they don't do your actual job. If they're still on your team or in the same space or realm, department, whatever you want to call it about, generally they'll have an answer, or they can point you in the direction of somebody that does. Right. So I think failing to ask questions or clarification on whatever is a big part of that.
Yes.
At least in my world, I've had a couple of places like that where, I've been afraid to ask because I'm supposed to be the guy, and it never works.
No, I don't think that matters. If you're meant to be the guy or not, like everyone has a question. There's something we're all unsure about something.
Yep.
No one knows everything. Correct. And if you're going into a new environment, a new job, and you don't know how this system or product's built, then I think it shows a side of intelligence that you're asking questions, especially detailed questions around the technical aspects of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. It just shows a level of understanding. I don't think you can gain, like, let's put it this way. Like when we were learning new topics in our Cisco realm on new technologies, not everything you read or watched a video on you learned straight away. There's questions where you're just like, what does this actually mean? Like, what is the bedrock of what is this problem solving, or how does this actually work? I know I had to ask so many different questions in order to understand something. Like, what happens if you did it this way? What would be the result of the system if you know what I mean? So it's question, like asking questions really does result in a greater understanding. In my opinion.
No, I agree with that. I think questions are the way to go. Don't be ashamed to ask questions. You're new. They're expected of you. You might as well take advantage of that. Because at some point that question
may solve a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that question may somebody else may have that question that just afraid to ask, and you may,
or someone may not have thought of that question.
Yeah,
there's something glaringly like, we never thought of that.
Right, there's an elephant in the room.
Should look into that. Yeah, that happens so many times.
All the time.
It gets something might get overlooked. So ask questions, because if you don't, and then the next 4 or 5 engineers down the line missed the question, and then the 5th one asked the question, like, wasn't that obvious?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
There's lots of obvious things, and some people just don't ask the obvious. It just blindsides you.
Yeah, they're not obvious until they hit you in the face. Yeah. Been there.
And even then, sometimes it's not obvious.
Until it bites you in the leg. You're like, all right, obvious enough now? Yes, you are. Yeah. And the other, I had 3 of the common mistakes. There's more out there, trust me, but these were the 3 that that stuck out to me. It's an easy trap to fall into, but I try to stay away from it as much as possible. It's talking too much about previous employers, right? So given that bad vibe, right? Bad vibe of, they did me dirty because X. It's like, okay, yeah, they did, and that's a sore spot. It's raw. We get it, but there's a reason you moved on. Yeah, so
right. Move on.
No one wants to hear it. Yeah, no one wants to hear it. Move on. It is what it is. Yeah. Like I said, like after you moved on, your seat wasn't even cold, and they had a new body in there. So it's nothing to them. It sticks with you because of the way they treated you, but it brings morale down. There's no point to it. Like there's no win on that side of the coin if you just consistently talk about an ex-employer, however many you had. It's just there's not a win out of that. There's no you do not come out of that argument or out of that light looking any favorable. There's just not it's not a thing.
Yeah, I would even say you lose in some aspects because you're bringing old problems to a, a new
To a fresh face. Yeah.
new position. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just not. You know what I mean? If you want to start move on and get a clean break, you should just put that in the past and just move on.
Yeah, you
it's
have
just
to.
not wise to take that on and bring that to your new employer. Like you said, it brings morale down.
Yep.
It's not their fault that you're not working there anymore.
Right.
You should just chomp that down to experience. And some experiences in life are not enjoyable or pleasant. Yep. Just be grateful that you're in an organization or a company that it's not like that anymore.
That values you for you.
Just,
and
yeah.
I
just
agree.
out of a toxic environment and just move on. That's the only thing I can say about that, really.
I agree.
And if you can't, again, then therapy's for you.
Yeah, right. We'll talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Which is, there's nothing wrong with that either. I've thought about it many times.
No, there's nothing wrong.
Man.
Yeah.
I gotta talk to somebody. They wouldn't believe the shit I've been through.
No, sometimes it's fair. Sometimes you have to get something off your chest. It could be something I've never experienced or something really heinous. And maybe you do have to get off your chest. But I still think the statement still stands that I still don't believe you should bring that into your new organization or company, regardless. Yeah. Yep. It's not because you're just going to tarnish potential good relationships and potentially a great job you have for an old set of problems.
Reputation. Yep. Whole deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. 100%. Yeah. So that was the three that I've that kind of stuck out to me in my past life of just a couple things that I've done either personally or have seen people come and go on my team that have done that just go, oh man, that's a red flag. Back to I have two more positives. So we're gonna try to wrap this up. But I think the other one, the positive to do, right? So when you're in, when you're fresh meat sort of thing, is ask for feedback, right? You don't know. Yeah. You don't know how you're doing unless you ask, right? So whether that's from a boss or from a coworker before you get to the boss, that sort of thing. So
peer review is
huge. Sometimes even more than the boss review. Like that's just, you know what I mean? I've been at places where the bosses aren't involved with fires at Friday at 11 o'clock or midnight. But the peer's been there. My colleague's been there. So
it's not just that, especially at our level, that someone who's managing us is not going to understand the nuance and the technicality of what we're doing, really. No. So, but a peer would.
Right. Correct. That's a good point.
A peer would understand what you're going through and how it is, and maybe if you're dealing with customers or a problem that's really challenging, then a peer would have a more appreciative understanding than a boss would. A boss is going to look at everything high level, in my opinion, and try to maybe proactively manage it or coach you through that. But I think a peer just is going to look at it the same lens as kind of you would. Maybe slightly different, but I think relatively similar.
Right. Same church, different pew. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think asking for feedback is huge. Because like I said, if you don't know you're screwing up, you're just gonna keep doing it, and eventually that rope is gonna run out, and they're gonna be like, all right, Friday afternoon, all right, you're no longer work here, and you're like, what?
Oh yeah, because in this game, people don't generally give you feedback until it's too late.
Yep.
So you have to kind of be proactive on that. If you're not, until it's too late, and like you said, you're basically at the door. That's when, and it's too late. You can't do anything about it.
Mine's already made up. What I mean? Paperwork's already gone.
Yeah, precisely. So it's more, you really have to be proactive and continually keep asking for feedback too. Yeah, I think that's something I do with my manager and a few of my peers as well.
You almost have to be on the threshold of annoying, asking for feedback.
Yeah, it's definitely, and it's not something that's never ever going to come natural, I think, to you either.
Right.
It's something you just have to be constantly aware of.
It's always a hard discussion to ask for feedback. It just is.
And you got to give it too, which is sometimes not easy.
Yeah, right. I hear you. I've been there.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to give it fearlessly, and it's not necessarily nice.
Correct. Yeah, it's just it's part of the gig, right?
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Yeah. So feedback. Always, I'm asking for it almost constantly, and I feel like I annoy people left and right. But it's like, look, this is what I do. This is my livelihood. I want to make sure I'm pulling weight and, and being the best that I can be, and bringing my skills to the team that rounds it out to the excellent team that it is. So I
it's also the best way anybody is going to get like results in terms of what, like the results you give out is going to be the instant and fastest way your peers are going to see you, in the respect of like, no one's going to give you information about yourself as quickly as feedback. It kind of cuts a lot of the crap out, if what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? It gets a lot of if someone has a problem with you and you ask for feedback, I don't know if you've gone through this in the past, Pat, but like sometimes I've not been aware of it, and you're just like, oh, that was refreshing, or that note, I can change that instantly. It's like, if you don't ask for it, you could go for years with doing something you're not aware of, and you could be, I don't know, maybe upsetting someone, or could be a better way of doing something, or
you're grinding
like
somebody's gears.
The list could go on, and you're just like, oh, and then there's so many people in industry who don't have the courage to actually give the feedback. So if you're actively asking, it's kind of half the battle, I think.
Yep. I'm having flashbacks right now. I'm like, oh,
you
man,
are?
That was me.
So it's just, I kind of feel like you're out there waving a white flag saying like, you're coming in peace.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to do my best I can here. Like, if you generally have a better way on how I can perform my job in a more efficient or manner that can suit you more, then I'm happy to take it on.
Yeah,
like, I'm not going to take everything on, because I'm not here to, you know what I mean, be a doormat. But ultimately, like, I don't want to I'm also not here to graze everyone as well. So it's that balance, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so feedback's a big one. And the last one I had here, and like I said, there's plenty more out there. These are the ones that just jumped off the page at me, and I've done this many times, and now it's my turn to be one of these. But find a mentor in your space, at your company, and just soak up all that knowledge that they have, because they've been in your shoes. They know what it's like. Find a mentor and ride their coattails so as long as they're going to let you ride them. I've had a few. Shout out to my buddy Alex and my buddy Kurt. Those two guys were instrumental in getting me to where I'm at today, and letting me piggyback off of their brains. So, and I still talk to them to this day. I message them on LinkedIn or chat them on Facebook, whatever. So, and they're always willing to help and give me a second pair of fresh eyes or whatever. So you got to find a mentor, and there's a certain kind of person out there that it takes to be a mentor. I found, because a lot of the really super smart guys, they're usually looking to give back to somebody. But then you come across a guy that who's been in IT for 40 years and is just riding to retirement. And he's kind of angry at everybody that, he's just pissed off at the world. And you're like, I'm not gonna ask him today. I'll maybe ask him tomorrow after he's had his coffee, that kind of thing. But it definitely takes a certain type of personality to be a mentor, and I found two good ones that are still friends to this day. So I say find a mentor, hang on to them, and let them sort of bring you both along to the promised land, if you will.
Yeah, a mentor's huge. It's actually finding a good mentor. It's difficult. I've always had good mentors. However, I have seen an industry where there has been poor mentors, and it's kind of sad to see when you see a fresh engineer sign up with a poor mentor, and it's just their career just goes down the toilet, basically, or they do
that guy's going to be out of
the wrong way. Yeah, and it's really sad to see. But no, I agree. To keep it positive, having a good mentor, one's knowledgeable. I would also go so far to say that if you could pick your mentor, try to pick someone who you aspire to be. It's a bit like going to the gym. And if you want to get buff, train with the buff dude. If you want to get smart, then train with the smart guys, smart people, or the girls, or if you want to work on your soft skills and that's where you want to go in, look at people in the organization who are always organized or have 10 contingency plans, and they can just Like literally, they can't be touched. Like work with people like that where nothing just in the working environment just seems to phase them. Like nothing, it's nothing like they haven't seen before. There's individuals in most workplaces where if you leave it to them, they could probably just run the company on their own. Yep. They don't get enough credit. Those are the ones I really feel you should work with, because those are the ones who, like you said, are going to allow you to move on to that next stage or platform in your life where you can take that next job or career move. Or
yep. They get it.
Yeah, they do get it. Yeah. They get it.
It just clicks in their heads and they get it. So you just got to find those guys, and that'll let you, come along for the ride, so to speak.
And there's a lot of them out there.
Oh yeah,
you got to be serious though. They're not into like you can't be wishy washy. Yeah. Don't show up late. Don't if they showed you something, bring pen and paper, because if like they ask you questions and you didn't write it down, it's gonna annoy them.
Yep.
Like some of these guys, most of the guys I'm talking about are generally old school.
Yep.
So
agreed.
They look at their time as valuable, and if you're not taking it serious, they're not going to take you serious. It's just how it is. And sometimes you just have to acquiesce to the way they do things, because they're inundating you and supplying you with a wealth of information and knowledge, as opposed to. So just sit back, go for the ride, and you'll be good.
Just have at it. So those are just a couple of things that, just talking about being the new guy, since I am the new guy, just started a new gig. So we figured it would be a good conversation to, what that looks like, and some of the pitfalls that we've seen over our careers, and trying to set you guys up for success, and breaking in and getting comfortable with your new role, and what to do, and some things to stay away from. So I think we got to skedaddle out of here, because fun fact, I am using a new laptop. I'm actually using my personal laptop tonight, and I am down to 6% battery. So I'm like, I gotta get through this, or else I'm gonna get cut off. So I think that is it. Did you have anything else, Dean, to add?
No, that was it. No, I feel we covered a
lot of ground.
Good amount of ground and information on that. So
yeah, sounds good. So I want to thank everybody, or we want to thank everybody for joining in this week. So you want to be in IT? Make sure you visit our website, so you want to be in it.buzzsprout.com, which, by the way, before this podcast went live, I gave Dean a little preview of our actual website that's coming, and it looks pretty good, if I must say so myself. So we got some final touches coming on that thing, and we're going to release that to the world in the next few weeks here. So be on the lookout for that. But from that buzzsprout.com site, you can subscribe to the show on iTunes and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. We're basically there. You throw us a rating on iTunes as well. That would be good. That plays with the fresh and new and noteworthy, I guess they call it now, algorithm, so we get to the top of the list. Or, simply tell a friend. That works as well. So we've had some really good feedback in the first couple episodes we've done. So we're going to keep on plowing through these here. And as long as you find it relevant, we'll keep doing it. So be sure to tell a friend and help us out there as well. So word of mouth works just as good some days as these social medias out there. So, and then again, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at So You Want to Be in IT, Facebook.com/So You Want to Be in IT. And then we have a Discord server. The invite is in the show notes, along with all of those social networks. The links are in the show notes as well, if you do care to follow us. So I think that's it. Dean, you're good to go. We have some really cool shows coming up, some really cool guests. So we're just kind of working out some timelines and getting everybody's schedule. So stay tuned for the next couple episodes. There are going to be some really cool stuff coming up. So Dean, that is it. And we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, see you guys. Thank you for joining.
All right, guys. Catch you later.
Is there anybody there?